There is no other power greater than the power over money, the power to create and contract the money supply, the power to control the purchasing power of your money. Throughout history, this has proven to be the most sought-after monopolistic power of man. So I see the issue of power and the control over money as being something that we cannot ignore, we must address.
You can't have a government like this without an income tax, but we don't want a government like this. This is not the kind of government that was designed by our founders of the country. It's not what was written in the Constitution. We've only had an income tax since 1913. But if you want a welfare state, and if you want to police the world and pay for the defense of Japan and Germany, send foreign aid to the Soviet Union, you not only need the income tax, you need the Federal Reserve to print up the money when the deficit is accumulated. So we think the government should be much smaller. If the government is small, then you don't need an income tax.
I don't see that we have the authority to all of a sudden impose our system of justice across the entire world. I do not think it's effective. I think it drums up more anti-American hostility more than it achieves justice.
It has nothing to do with national security. Matter of fact, our national security is more jeopardized by permitting this to happen because we're liable to start a war. We're liable to have our military men killed. We're liable to have more attacks on us by terrorists.
Our foolish policy in Iraq invites terrorist attacks against U.S. territory and incites the Islamic fundamentalists against us. Our foreign policy of military interventionism has brought us death and destruction to many foreign lands and loss of life for many Americans. From Korea and Vietnam to Serbia, Iran, Iraq, and now Afghanistan, we have ventured far from our shores in search of wars to fight. There is no evidence that this policy serves the interests of world peace. It certainly increases the danger to all Americans as we become the #1 target of terrorists. Our arrogant policy and attitude of superiority will continue to elicit a smoldering hatred toward us, and out of sheer frustration will motivate even more terrorist attacks against us.
The dollar today is worth only 4 cents compared to the dollar that the Federal Reserve started with in 1913. This has significant consequences on our economy and our political stability. All paper currencies are vulnerable to collapse, and history is replete with examples of great suffering caused by these collapses, especially to the nation's poor and the middle class. This can lead to political turmoil as well. Even before a currency collapses, the damage done by a fiat system is significant. Our monetary system insidiously transfers wealth from the poor and the middle class to the privileged rich. Wages never keep up with profits on Wall Street and the banks, thus sowing the seeds of class and discontent. When economic trouble hits, free markets and free trade are often blamed, while the harmful effects of a fiat monetary system are ignored.
The CIA is correct when they teach and talk about blowback. When we went into Iran in 1953 and installed the Shah, yes, there was blowback. The reaction to that was the taking of our hostages, and that persists. And if we ignore that at our own risk. That if we think that we can do what we want around the world and not incite hatred, then we have a problem. They don't come here to attack us because we're rich and we're free. They come and they attack us because we're over there. I mean, what would we think if we were, if other foreign countries were doing that to us?
If you look at the price of oil in the last 10 years, if you look at it in terms of dollars, it went up 350%. If you look at it in euros, it went up about 200%. If you look at it in the price of gold, it stayed flat.
It's the inflation. It's the printing of money. It's the destruction of the value of the dollar. Added on to this, the notion that we go to protect our oil. Oil was $27 when we went over there to get the oil and protect the oil and take the oil from Iraq. There's less than about half the production now in Iraq right now, and we're threatening Iran, and that pushes prices up. It pushes up the concept of supply and demand, but you can't deal with the price of oil without dealing with the supply and demand of dollars. When you devalue the dollar, and the dollar is going down every day, and the further the dollar goes down, the higher the prices of oil going up. We have to understand that.
We ought to obey the Constitution, live within our means, and balance the budget, quit warmongering, and quit the welfare state. Those minor things like that. But eventually, you don't need the Federal Reserve. No, it's caused too much trouble. Central banking has always been harmful. It's a seductive way of financing big government. Conservatives love it because you can pay the military bills. Liberals love it because you can pay the welfare state bill. But it's all deception. It's all a tax. It eventually destroys and hurts the very people you're trying to help. You try to help poor people by giving them stuff for free, but you end up giving them inflation. They're the first ones to lose their jobs. They're the ones who suffer the most from inflation. We have inflation today much more so than anybody admits, because that's why the cost of medicine is so high and the cost of education is so high. It's the devaluation of the dollar. So with all this good intentions of helping poor people, the very people who are doing this are actually making it much more harmful and hurting those they want to help.
It makes no sense for us to think that we can keep troops in 135 countries, 900 bases, and think we can do it forever. So no matter how badly you want us to do that, it's time to reassess that foreign policy. It's time for us to bring troops home. We've had troops in Japan since World War II and in Germany. Why are we paying for their defense? There's nothing wrong with what the founders talked about. They talked about having friendships and trading, getting along with people, and staying out of the entangling alliance in the internal affairs of foreign nations when it's none of our business.
With my experience and my outlook, I think I would be in a position to provide some real leadership. That's why I decided to run. We may never again have a chance like this, ever. We've got to do it now.